shame, right? Because there's a lot of shaming that goes on that keeps people from reaching out and getting help, getting the mental help that they need. And learn how to build relationships. No matter like what you do in the future, this skill is going to be essential. And that's something that we aren't taught in our childhood. So in Gestalt Psychotherapy, what makes it a little bit different is that it is very present, kind of like present focused. So we focus on how you feel. However, our emotional kind of well-being can affect our physical well-being. Lots of expectations, big expectations from people in their 20s. They're just entering the adult stage of their life, but they are expected to act and to perform and to show results, working with Central Asian women in general, right? So one of the biggest challenges I feel like for Central Asian women in their 20s is balancing education, career, and family. Common nowadays, I feel like, to see women owning their own small businesses, and that just makes me so happy and so proud of them. And also, one of the most important things I feel like is balancing tradition and modernity, right?
Hello. Today we are joined by Malika Hashimova, a London-based wellness and healing coach and the founder of her coaching practice, Heal with Malika. She specializes in helping individuals overcome challenges such as low self-esteem, limiting beliefs, generational trauma, perfectionism, and anxiety. Currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Gestalt Psychotherapy at the Metanoia Institute in London, Malika is also the host of the popular podcast, Healing in Your 20s, where she discusses mental health and personal growth. Malika, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Can you start by telling us a bit about your personal journey? What led you to become a healing coach and pursue a degree in Gestalt Psychotherapy?
Yeah, I would love to. So I think for me to kind of tell this, I have to go a little bit backwards to how, like, where I was born and all the little things that kind of added up to this decision. So I was born in a little neighborhood in Andijan. I was born into a very loving family, very traditional. We had very traditional roles and norms in our family, but with lots of love. And when I was 5, we moved from Andijan to Turkey because of my dad's job. And there, my parents decided to give me to like an American school where I was introduced to a more Western way of life. And so I kind of studied with people from all over the world. And then in my teen years, we moved back to Uzbekistan. So in this moment, I think I was able to see, kind of compare the two different ways of life. And I could see some of the ways that women were not treated the way that I would like them to be in my family, in society. And back then, even as like a growing adult, I really wanted to help these women. I thought, okay, when I grow up, I'm going to make sure that they're going to be better. I'm going to heal them. And then I went into university in Westminster, finished that, had an arranged marriage that went very well. I met an amazing person. And after 6 months together in Tashkent, we decided we wanted to move to the UK. So in the UK, away from kind of like my family and the societal kind of norms, I was able to really rediscover who I was, what I wanted to do, which led me into something that I always knew I wanted to do, which was to heal women. And I decided I needed to take this seriously. I needed the best education. I needed lots of years of experience if I wanted to actually make a difference. So I started my journey in Metanoia, doing my master's in Gestalt Psychotherapy. And yeah, so this is where I am now. This is why I chose therapy.
For those who may not be familiar with the term, can you explain the core principles of Gestalt Psychotherapy? What is it?
So, psychotherapy in general is working with somebody to help you kind of understand your emotions, your feelings, and kind of help you get through some of the challenges in life. Just have someone that can support you and kind of guide you in these hard times, right? So in Gestalt psychotherapy, what makes it a little bit different is that it is very present, kind of like present focused. So we focus on how you feel right now. As you sit in the therapy room, how do you feel? And we really kind of encourage our clients to understand their emotions and to take responsibility for their actions and their behaviors. And we also look at the kind of like a person holistically. So we look at the mind and the body as one. Also, Gestalt psychotherapy is very creative, I would say. We use role-playing kind of exercises like the empty chair, and this helps us kind of go around resolving maybe some situations, some emotions that we didn't have the kind of ability to feel when we were younger.
When I read your works and when I was listening to your podcast, you use the word healing. How can you define this word in this context and in your work?
I think it's easy to understand what healing is when we kind of look at our physical body. So if we hurt ourselves or we cut our hand while we're cooking or we fall down the
Yeah.
stairs, it's easy to kind of see healing it happening, right? We can put a band-aid on it. We can put some cream, some antibacterial, sprays, and we can see the healing process visually. We can see the little cut closing and our skin kind of working, our body working to heal that wound. So in this context, in a therapy context, healing happens like something that we cannot see, right? This happens
Yeah.
inside of us emotionally. It happens in our bodies. It's something that isn't very visual, which is why a lot of the times it's not taken as seriously. However, our emotional kind of well-being can affect our physical well-being. So I think that both ways of healing are very, very important.
Yeah, of course. Now you work with individuals navigating the challenges of their 20s, and your podcast is focused on that as well. Why do you think this period of life is often so challenging in terms of mental health and personal growth?
I think that our 20s are challenging for so many reasons, but mostly because of expectations, right? There are lots of expectations, big expectations from people in their 20s. They're just entering the adult stage of their life, but they are expected to act and to perform and to show results as an experienced adult. So I think that this pressure can sometimes create some challenges for people in their 20s. And they're also navigating kind of finishing university and going into the working life or family life. And that is a completely new chapter where you need completely new skills, where you might have to be around completely new people. So there's a lot of kind of leaving the old behind and welcoming kind of like new things. But that transition period can be challenging because there's a lot of newness, I think.
Talking about the expectations, how do societal expectations versus personal desires impact the decisions young adults make during this period?
Yeah, I think that because I work mostly with women, I would like to
Yeah.
answer this question kind of through the lens of my kind of experience working with Central Asian women in general, right? So one of the biggest challenges I feel like for Central Asian women in their 20s is balancing education, career, and family, right? The expectations there are around education, career, and family. Because there is a pressure that we need to kind of marry young, right? We have our early 20s, this window to get married. But this is the time also that we are studying still or just finishing university. And that can create a lot of challenges. But also the kind of limited support for career women, right? Again, because of the societal expectations around getting married earlier, women are not very supported, like young women, right? They're not supported to go into the workforce. And sometimes the workforce can also be a little bit discriminating because they're afraid that once they get married, then they'll leave the job, or once they get pregnant, they'll have to leave the job. So it's kind of navigating through all of these little barriers and challenges and staying kind of true to yourself during this time.
Yeah, and also let's talk about social media and mental health because they can experience the feelings such as FOMO, fear of missing out, or comparison. Um, how does the social media affect mental health, in your opinion? And what strategies can help individuals to manage these feelings?
Yeah, these are very, very important and big, big topics, I feel like. And hopefully I'll be able to kind of give a very like short answer that covers this. But in in my opinion, social media has introduced instant gratification, right? So, what I mean by that is we get the best of the best in such a short amount
Mm-hmm.
of time. We get to see the success of the best, I don't know, people, the students, the business people, right? We see that every single
Like the
day.
ideal picture.
And if we were following one person, that would be different. But in social media, we are exposed to the success of every single person on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that can severely hurt the confidence or the motivation of young people because if you take one person's life, it isn't always success and great things and achievements, right? It has ups and it
Yeah.
has downs. But in social media, nobody likes to expose the downs. They don't like to show the failures or the bad days or them crying or being homesick or, you know, being fired from a job. That kind of content is not posted, and only the good stuff are posted. So when we look at social media now, we think everyone's life is always great. Everyone is always doing things, going places, achieving things, getting jobs. And because there's this kind of bias, right? We don't see, there's no balance in here. We don't see the bad days. We then kind of look at our own life with through a different lens. We're like, how come I'm not succeeding like them? Or how come I'm not as happy as them or have as much money or travel as much, right? There's this unfair comparison that happens now with social media. And that can severely hurt the mental health of people in their 20s because they're already going through a lot. And we
Yes,
don't
yeah.
realize that everyone has different experiences, different opportunities, different privileges in life. Everyone starts at a different point, and everyone has their own timeline of achieving and doing things. But there's this feeling of being left behind and fear of missing out on things because we don't have that balance, because there isn't that kind of authenticity online, right?
Right. And maybe young adults, they don't know their priorities, maybe what they want from life. Because I think if the person has an aim, he or she can, navigate at least better through these kind of feelings. What do you think about that? What are the strategies that young people can use so that they won't be, you know, um, affected by those kind of feelings of FOMO or comparison? Because we are living in the era of social media and you will see successful people all the time. But you should have, skills to be able to focus on your life. So what are the strategies, or what things young people should pay attention?
I totally agree with you around the fact that having a goal, right, makes things easier because when we have a goal, when we know where we're going, it's easier not to lose focus and get distracted. The most important thing I think for young people to realize is that if you have a goal, right, and it does not match your values, your true values, it is not a goal that you set for yourself, given your aspirations in life, things that you authentically want for yourself, then you will still be distracted. You will find
Yeah.
ways that will kind of push you to different, other directions. And I think the most important thing we have to do as in our 20s is to rediscover who we are without all of the conditioning that we were put under from our parents, from our society, from our culture, right? If we take all of that away, who are we and what do we want? This is, I feel like, the most important question for people in their 20s, just to realize who they are. If they don't know, who do you want to be, right? Who do you want to be? If social media didn't exist, if your parents would support you no matter what, your family would support you no matter what, and the whole society would love you and not judge you and not shame you, what would you do? Who would you be? And how would your life look like? And I think more than actually achieving this in our 20s, the goal of our 20s is, I think, should be to get clear on that. Just more clarity, set a tone, set a direction to go because we have our whole life. We have our whole life to change our mind, grow, learn, change our goals again. But if we start this self-discovery journey earlier, like in our 20s, I feel like this will give us a very good start and a good foundation so that we can continue growing and learning and kind of add to that.
Back to the topic, I really like that you use the word authenticity. What does it mean to live authentically in your 20s?
I think that for me, authenticity is just one of the most important like values. And it is because I have experienced the opposite of it. And growing up in Uzbekistan kind of taught me to put on different masks, act in a certain way to be perceived better, to fit in the society, to fit in with my group of friends, or to even be looked at as a potential good bride, right? Or a good daughter. You kind of put on different masks in order to fit in because there's this fear that if you are you, authentically real you, then you will not be accepted, that you will be rejected, that you will be exiled, that you will be kind of separated from the group. And that can be very difficult because that is like a human need. We want to belong somewhere. And so when we're growing up, it's very natural to pick up the tendency to act a different way, to change who we are, to say we like things when we don't like them, or to kind of change even our whole personality to match a certain kind of stereotype of who you need to be. And so for me, my healing journey kind of involves, again, right, getting to know who I am without these masks on. If when you take all of these masks off and you look at yourself, who do you see? Who do you want to see? And how can you show up daily as this real version of yourself? Because when we are wearing these masks, it tires us. It's a lot of work continuously acting and pretending to be someone else, to like something you don't like, to say things that, don't really match who you are or what you believe in. It takes a toll on a person and their mental health and their energy level. So that's why authenticity is so, so important to me. Just being true, being yourself, not being afraid to be rejected sometimes for being yourself, right? And trusting that when you are yourself, you will attract people who will love you for you, who will respect you for you, and not for someone that you pretend to be.
This is such an important topic, and you mentioned about your upbringing in Central Asia and Uzbekistan. And as far as I understand, the environment you grow up and a lot of young people grow up affects in certain way. And for example, in the context of Central Asia, particularly Uzbekistan, what unique challenges do young people face? I know we've talked about it a little bit earlier, but let's dive deep into this question.
I'll add to that. So, apart from balancing education, career, and family expectations, this goes to both women and men, right? Because men have their own societal expectations. They're expected to make like a lot of money and be able to take care of their family and their parents at such a young age, right? There's a lot of pressure that goes on to them as well. But other than that, there's also like gender inequality and employment barriers, right? So the accessibility of jobs after you finish university and discrimination in the workplace, especially towards women. That's something that is not really talked about, and that a lot of women kind of are embarrassed to even bring up in communities, right? And to ask for help or just address it, even. We try to just brush it off as if it's not important, but we have to kind of admit that it is there. And also, one of the most important things I feel like is balancing tradition and modernity, right? Because we have our cultural expectations, but we also have this modern globalized idea of independence and education and self-expression. So we kind of have to balance, okay, what are the cultural expectations of me, of who I need to be, but then we also kind of compare it to what we see again on social media or on TV of what an independent, more kind of globalized way of life is. So balancing those two things without going extreme to either end is also challenging, right? Not completely throwing away tradition and culture, but also not kind of forgetting about like the modern way of life is challenging to be like, okay, what do I want to keep from my culture? What do I want to keep? Which traditions are actually really nice? But then ask, okay, but which one of these is toxic to me? Which one of these is causing me harm or causing other people harm? And how can I keep some of the aspects of the tradition, but change the harmful aspects, right? Kind of take away the toxic parts of it, but leave the essence, because I don't think that culture is a bad thing or our traditions are bad overall. But there may be some toxic things that we can change now that we're kind of growing and healing as like a community. And another challenge I feel like in our 20s that girls face, but again, because I work mostly with women, I'm going to kind of talk from their kind of experience a little bit more. And that is gender roles and like domestic responsibilities, right? Because you finish university like in your 20s. Let's imagine girls finish university. They kind of are looking for a job. They're also going on these arranged dates, trying to find their future husband. But in the same time, they are responsible for managing like the household, the cleaning duties, the cooking duties. And want it or not, women end up having to juggle all of that. And sometimes in severe cases, women are kind of put into an ultimatum whether they have to choose between domestic work and their careers, or they're asked to first do all the domestic work and then do their careers, like prioritizing. And this can be very difficult again, to balance, to juggle. And like this caregiving is also on the shoulders of women, usually caring for the children, the elderly of the family. that also falls on the shoulder of women. And again, this is kind of the invisible labor that is given to women. And on top of everything, it can be a lot, right? Um,
Do you think that the things are changing though? Like, if we are talking about female empowerment in the region, do you think that the situation is changing with the development of social media and different platforms in Central Asia, especially Uzbekistan? What do you think about this process? As I know you are advocate for social justice as well, and you are paying attention towards the trends that are happening in the region. So what's your take on that?
yeah, so this kind of goes into like some of the coping mechanisms or coping strategies that women kind of are starting to build and to create, right? Because no, given everything, women are still very strong. They're still kind of growing and blooming through all of this chaos and all of this heaviness. They're still managing to get their education, to get into the best universities, whether that be local or abroad. They are networking, they're connecting, they're creating communities, they're making workshops and courses that they all attend. And again, like I said before, there's a strong willingness to create businesses. It's very common nowadays, I feel like, to see women owning their own small businesses. And that just makes me so happy and so proud of them because that's another additional thing they have to kind of work with, but they're doing it. And that just shows the resilience and the strength that our women have. And not only that, but I also see a rising kind of movement for the advocacy of women's rights, right? They're getting involved in like social activism, advocating for gender equality, for access to healthcare, for protection against domestic violence. And I think all of these are amazing, amazing developments. And all I can hope for is that it continues to grow and continues to spread across all of Uzbekistan and all of Central Asia in the future.
Yes, I hope so as well. Can you tell me about the differences in the attitude towards mental health and self development? Is this topic popular in Uzbekistan? What do you think?
I think that it's getting more and more popular. And I'm very, again, this is very positive news. Before, if like mental health and therapy were kind of taboo subjects, right? They're not really talked about. Other kind of thoughts about it that kind of kept people from reaching out, getting help that they need, and to heal, right? But nowadays, I feel like people are more open to the idea, and I can see more and more people working on themselves, reading the right books, getting together, and healing as a community again. And mental health, psychology, therapy is more talked about. And I see this trend only rising in the future.
Yes, and from the policy based context, what do you think should happen, or what kind of developments there should be to support this area?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that kind of we have to work on as a collective, right, as a country, as a whole, is to remove shame, right? Because there's a lot of shaming that goes on that keeps people from reaching out and getting help, getting the mental help that they need. I think that a lot of the shaming kind of happens because we don't think that depression is real. We don't think that stress could be a real problem. We kind of, again, we don't see that invisible pain, right? We see the visible pain. We know why we have to go to the doctor or the dentist, but we don't feel like, I feel like mental health isn't seen as something that we can cure, right? And again, for this to kind of get better as a collective, we need to make people not feel bad about asking for help, right? And we need to make clear instructions of where they can go, where can they get help, which communities can help them, and make sure that these communities actually work, right? Have professionals there to help people when they come, because it's already a very big step for people to ask for mental health help. And if they are given the wrong type of help or they're not given help at all, it could stop them from ever reaching out again. So I feel like we need to take this seriously together, create community centers where people can come together to heal, to share their stories, and to even hope and dream of a better reality for all of us, right? A reality where women feel safer at home, a reality where men don't have to stress all by themselves, a reality where like marriage is taken seriously and not just as something that we have to get done in our 20s, but as a coming together of two people, right? There's a lot of work, but I feel like we have the professionals, we have we have the intention. All we need is organization. We need to organize all of this, put it together so that we can see change happen. But also another thing I think could help this is being shown on media, right? Having people go to therapy in like Uzbek shows or on different I don't know, media channels, on social media, kind of take away that this weird gray curtain away from mental health. Just open it, make it clear. This is why it's here. This is how it can help.
I think in Uzbekistan there are certain cultural and traditional barriers. Probably in Western cultures, they have awareness. Maybe this is the answer. Character of the society is a bit different. What do you think about that?
The kind of living conditions in major cities like this are higher, right? So when our living conditions are high, that kind of lower stress levels anyways, and it is easier to take a pause, to self-reflect, to be like, oh, what am I feeling? But in high stress environments where people still struggle to make ends meet, as in the cities, I feel like in Uzbekistan, which some cities are, people are more aggressive because there's a lot of stress, right? And there's the absence of awareness, as you said, because we don't have this education. I feel like we don't have the awareness and the added stress of living in a developing country could make people more aggressive. But something that I noticed myself is when you leave the capital and you go to Anjan, for example, people are less aggressive there. It's not because like they are like Western or not, or they have awareness or not. The simple fact that you take away this city stress already makes them a little bit more calm, a little bit more like kinder, nicer, right? And I feel like there's a lot of factors that kind of play into this, but awareness, as you said, and the condition, like economical, political conditions of a country also kind of influence how people feel as like a collective, right? How our behavior is.
Yeah, you could frame it very well. Let's get back to the healing in your 20s topic. One of the cornerstone topic among young adults, and I think for everyone, is the topic of the confidence. How to build the confidence. In your opinion, what are some practical steps that people can take to build confidence, especially young adults?
I feel like the first thing that we have to do is by celebrating like the small achievements that we have, because sometimes they get kind of forgotten, especially with the era of social media. The things that we achieve seem smaller compared to the best of the best. So sometimes we kind of brush them off. We achieve something and we are straight, we straight go ahead and go to the next goal. We achieve that goal. We don't have time to celebrate. We put another goal, and we're always chasing the next thing. We're always in this, I need more. I need to achieve more. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. And this can severely damage our self-confidence because we don't spend a second to be like, wow, I was there and now I am here and I did all of these things. I grew in all of these different ways. And just to sit in that achievement for a little while and to celebrate it, to celebrate yourself and to kind of understand how much strength, how much discipline, how much commitment it took for you to get to where you are and just be there for a second, right? Instead of rushing to the next thing, you'll get there, but just sitting there and appreciating yourself, the people around you that helped you achieve this, right? Your support systems. I think this can also increase our self-confidence. Another way that we can start to kind of improve our self-confidence is to pay attention to that critical voice in our mind, right? Because usually when we do feel good, it is this critical voice that tells us we shouldn't be, or that we're not good enough, or what we did isn't perfect. And it is important to realize that this voice is not the truth, right? It is something that, like, voices of people that we heard in our past that we kind of took and we recorded and we play this record on repeat again and again in our minds. And it's important to be conscious of that, be aware of that, that there is a voice in there and that we have the ability to change that voice if we don't like it, if we don't like the things that this voice is saying. And it doesn't mean that we have to completely ignore any warnings, but we understand when it's being overly dramatic, right? Or overly critical for no good reason. We can take constructive criticism, but nothing like judgment or shame, right? So being able to catch yourself when you're thinking these critical thoughts and changing them into something helpful, right? I don't say positive, I say helpful. So, for example, if you make a piece of art and your critical voice says that it is terrible and nobody will like it, you can change it to, I think I did a good job, right? It doesn't mean you have to make it into this is the best thing ever. No, I think I did a good job. I tried my best and I want people to see it, right? To change that critical voice to something helpful so that it doesn't keep us from creating and from achieving. And I think the last thing that I want to say, which is probably the hardest thing, is self-compassion, right? Having compassion to yourself when you make mistakes, to not judge yourself straight away. Understand that making mistakes is a part of the journey, and making mistakes is the best way to also learn and to gain experience and also to kind of accept that everyone has some flaws, right? Everyone has things that they still have to work on. There's no such thing as a perfect person. There's also no such thing as a fully healed person. We're always in this journey. We're always getting hurt and then healing again. We're always failing, getting up and trying again. And this is the kind of the truth of life. It's not always like good. It's not always great. And accepting that as a part of life, accepting that even if you don't feel confident all the time, accepting that, you don't have to feel confident all the time. As long as most of the time you're okay, that's what matters. Because then again, we're chasing perfectionism and there's no such thing, right? So yeah, with when you heal, when you kind of go through therapy or you go through your own healing journey, you you kind of form and create this confidence that is nothing external, right? It's nothing that something outside of you can change. You create confidence that is foundational, that no matter what happens, I can handle it. I think having this mindset, right? No matter what happens, I can handle it is it was very important for me when I was building my confidence.
I see. So I think we're getting back to Gestalt psychotherapy. So it's about feeling the moment, but also understand that this is a process, evolving process. And when you're working on your self-development and healing, there are also some tools and techniques as well, because you have to do a work. And can you share, based on your experience, personal experience as well, one practice or habit that you believe everyone should incorporate into their daily routine for better mental health?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is journaling. So I truly, truly believe that magic happens when we journal, not for somebody else to read, but just for ourselves, for our eyes only. When we journal, we cross so many things that are almost equal to therapy, I would say, because when you journal, number one, you slow down your mind because you have to write one word at a time. So, in a way, it's like meditation. You have to slow down your mind to be able to write one word after another word. And that will help you kind of slow down the pace and be able to really hear what's going on up here. And the next thing is journaling can act as an amazing way to brain dump. So you put everything in your brain on a piece of paper so that you don't overthink as much. Because when we don't know what's happening in there, when we don't know all of the things that our brain is kind of saying and doing and repeating, then we just do it on kind of like a how do I say it, automatic mode. It just keeps going and going. But when we put it on paper and we look at it, we can be like, whoa, why am I like thinking about this for like a month already? We have to figure this out. Or I've been writing about this for a week. I should just probably do it. So it's like a reminder to get kind of this hard stuff done or hard stuff felt instead of just keeping it inside of yourself. And then the third kind of advantage of journaling is you just remember the good stuff. You remember the bad stuff and you remember the good stuff. And it's just great to relive some memories, but also go back and see how you have grown, what you have learned, how your mindset has changed. And it's a great way to keep your growth and your healing documented. So you can go back and see how you've changed. And I think that's also very healing in a way. But yeah, and magic, again, magic happens when you sit down and you let yourself write things without judgment, without shame, because there are some things you cannot even tell your bestest friend. There's some things you don't want to tell your partner. And these really deep things that we don't want to share with other people, when we write them down and we reflect on it by ourselves, magic happens. So I will always be an advocate for journaling. And I think that everyone should journal at least one page a day, and they will already see like the benefits of it.
Yes, also I think it helps to be self-compassionate. I think it's a very great advice. And is there anything you wish you had known earlier on your journey that might have made it easier?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I wish I could have done earlier was going to somebody for help, going to a professional for help, whether that be a coach or a therapist. I wish that I had gone and gotten help because doing things by yourself is great. You can read many books, self-help book after self-help book after self-development book. And every time you finish one of these books, you get a rush of adrenaline, a rush of dopamine. You're like, oh yeah, I'm motivated. But what happens is we pick up another book. Instead of putting the things that are written in the book into action, taking action, doing things, we tend to just keep staying in the learning loop, I call it. We always think we don't know enough and we need to learn more and we need to learn more. And this keeps us also from acting. So I think that if I had gotten help from someone else, for someone to hold my hand, for someone to guide me, someone like, that provides the service that I provide for people today, like I really needed that for someone to just be like, okay, great things you learned over there, but now we're going to actually feel it, or now we're going to actually do it. Now we're actually going to take a step forward and we're going to put it into action in your life. I think that's what I kind of needed because I got stuck in the learning phase for a long time. And I had all this information, but I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to implement them. And I knew they were great. The information is great. Learning is essential, but so is actually embodying this information, right? In our bodies, in our lives. And I think that was kind of absent. So the earlier kind of I could do that, I feel like would have been better for me.
Now I'm going to my last question. Is there a message or insight you'd like to leave our audience with, especially for those who are in their 20s and navigating life's uncertainties?
The number one thing I would say is to slow down, right? I would want to let them know that they have time, that life is long and you have so much time. You have so many more years ahead of you. You have the opportunity to make mistakes. You have the opportunity to change your mind anytime. You don't have to settle and know exactly what you're going to be doing for your whole life in your 20s. It is great if you do, but don't pressure yourself too much. If you're still learning, if you're still experimenting, if you're still trying new things. And with that, I would also encourage them to try as many new things as possible and to meet as many new people as possible. Because the more people we meet, I feel like the more universes that we're exposed to, the more life experience that we're exposed to. And we learn through relationships more than we learn from books, more than we learn in school. We learn through relationships. And I feel like that should be one of the areas to maybe focus on in your 20s to get to know people doing different things from different parts of the world and just experience that and learn how to build relationships, prioritize your relationships, because no matter like what you do in the future, this skill is going to be essential, and that's something that we aren't taught in our childhood. So relearn that, relearn what kind of relationships you want, what kind of boundaries you want to set for yourself and for your relationships, and just take it slow, right? Give yourself space to fall and get back up and to fall again and to get back up and try and change that judgmental tone inside of you to something a little bit more compassionate, something a little bit more caring towards yourself. Yeah, I think that's a very big message, but
But it's very, very inspiring and useful. And Malika, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. I really hope our audience will find them useful and inspiring. And I personally enjoyed our conversation. I wish you good luck with your future endeavors and with your work and your plans. Thank you so much.
thank you so much too, Aziz. I had an amazing conversation. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, and it was an honor to show up here today to share all of this. So I hope that, it's going to reach the right people, and I thank you for this opportunity.